Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Dodgy Git. Welcome back to the Dodgy Git Show. Got the fire on, all toasty warm, got my jumper on, all toasty. Yeah, thanks for joining me again. Yeah, here we are. We're going to go into the COVID inquiry again. It's live again. I've been listening for a bit, and the language drives me nuts, right? Anyway, I'll transition you over. Thanks for joining me for episode 88. We got two fat ladies. Episode 88 of the Dodgy Git Show. Here we are. We're going to listen to these people get questioned again, and see where we go. I'll be in and out. I might go for a cup of coffee or whatever, and I'll be back in. If you see me disappear, don't worry. Please hang around. Get me watch hours up, isn't it? We're going for watch hours and likes. Yeah, please subscribe. Definitely please subscribe, and you get notified of the next one. And yeah, share on other platforms and stuff. Tell your friends what's going on. Then come and join me and you and everybody else. You and me and you. There's lots and lots for us to do. Hey? Yeah, like fucking play school, isn't it? You remember play school? Fucking Jemima and Big Ted and Little Ted. Yeah, that lady's a lady now, isn't she? Yeah, Floella Benjamin. Yeah, probably one of the nicest people you could ever meet. Yeah, Floella Benjamin. It'd be amazing to meet her. Anyway, I'm going to transition you over. I'll pop myself down in corner. I won't be in where. Right, I'll move myself out. I'll probably mute myself and bugger off in a minute, and you can watch for a bit, and I might move the screens around. Yeah, thanks for joining me. See what they got to say, eh?
Yes, that is correct.
And there was confusion to the public, you thought, because there were difficulties associated with how to communicate to the general public the different measures, the different impacts of the different levels, and of course whatever area was in which level. So it was a difficult process. When did it become apparent to the CTF that the tier system was not doing enough to reduce the level of incidence?
I think to answer that, if I may, can I just describe a bit what happened in the few days, because there were some different.
Right, we'll let him fall over his own words and explain himself. I'll mute myself and disappear for 5 minutes. Back in a bit. Don't forget, I'm Dodgy Git. Thank you for joining me at Dodgy Git Show. Yeah, I'm sharing my love with you, so you can share it around.
In terms of regularising local restrictions prior to the 7th and 8th of October, following that meeting on the 8th of October, as per the note, there was a subsequent discussion between the Prime Minister and the Chancellor, and on that Thursday evening, the decision was made that we would start the negotiations with local areas. And as you say, we started those on the following day, the 9th, before that is before the formal agreement to tiers, which happened in COVID-0, I think on the 11th. I mean, you've listed the reasons I put in my statement. I won't repeat them, but we went into those negotiations incredibly quickly because of the urgency. And I mean, it was apparent very quickly that negotiating a tough enough tier 3 with local areas was going to be difficult for all the reasons I described. The meeting on the 11th then agreed the tiers 1, 2, and a sort of baseline for 3 with an agreement that we would further negotiate the sort of tighter restrictions with areas from the 11th. So the distinction in response to your question is, it was not the case either sort of prior to the 11th that tiers in and of themselves wouldn't work, and that an approach locally to suppressing the virus differentially, depending on prevalence, wouldn't work. The negotiations, and that as a mean to get tough enough restrictions in tier 3 areas, it was clear pretty quickly we wouldn't get there. Indeed, as you say, we got an agreement with Liverpool city region quite fast over a couple of days, but the discussions with other local areas went on much longer, and I don't in fact think we got there with Greater Manchester.
Forgive me, I wasn't suggesting that the government knew that they wouldn't work on the cusp of trying to put the system into place and negotiate with the regional authorities. When, as October rolled through and the virus began to spread, did it become apparent that the tier system, which obviously had involved some regions going into tier 3 and some regions going to tier 2 and perhaps the balance into tier 1, I can't recall, wasn't going to reduce the level of incidence sufficiently fast?
So I think we knew as we were continuing to go through October. I mean, prevalence was continuing to rise. The general movement was up the tiers, if you like. Tier 1 areas were becoming tier 2 areas, tier 2 areas were becoming tier 3 areas, and it was, as I say in my statement, clear that we'd end up having to have negotiations with large numbers of councils. So as a way of pushing back the virus quickly, we could see as we went through other meetings and discussions in October that was unlikely to work. I think retrospective work suggested tier 3 at least was slowing things down, but we didn't at that point have the time for all of that to play through.
So here's the question in relation to the tier system. I was asking you earlier about why this formalised system, a regional circuit breaker, wasn't put forward as a specific option in September. Do you think that if this tier system, which was announced, as I've said, on the 12th of October, had been developed further, introduced and negotiated in September, when the levels of incidence were necessarily lower, it would have stood a greater chance of success?
Yes, I think that is fair. I think the tiers themselves would have had to have been stringent enough, and we would have had to have applied them quickly enough in local areas and over a broad enough geography to have an impact. So they're kind of, but in general, yes, that is a.
And had they been imposed in September and the negotiations had taken place, there is, you would accept, no doubt, a greater chance, although we will never know how great, that it would have worked and might have avoided the need for the subsequent national lockdown.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is possible. As I say, and when we kind of get to 2021, we decided against regional approaches for lots of reasons, reflecting back, and that opening back up in 2021 was best done nationally, but it's uncertain. It's certainly the case that if we acted more strongly earlier, we'd have stood a fairer chance of avoiding a national lockdown.
On the 25th of October, there was a forward strategy meeting in Chequers. And it was apparent to everyone there, of course, that cases were continuing to rise. By the 25th of October, it must have been apparent that the tier plan, the tier system, was having an insufficient impact in terms of the rise in the virus spread. INQ 252880 details a number of strategies for the months rolling forward. So
now we get the dogs.
December, and then January to January, and then March to April. Strategies. Is that correct? The strategy meeting on the 25th of October was held in order to try to chart a course going forward as to the possibilities that might eventuate.
Yeah, I think this was a sort of schematic sort of approach that was subsequent to the meeting. I don't think this is what we discussed in the meeting on the 25th.
136672 is a readout from Imran Shafi in number 10, in which he refers to the PM meeting the team today on the forward COVID strategy. James Bowler of the CTF set out the overall potential course to spring. including rising numbers followed by a plateau. We needed to understand now what our strategy was to Christmas. In the bottom third of the case of the page, you set out the strategic choices ahead. We would need to decide how to respond to the LCR's upcoming 28-day review. There was a debate about the general shift towards Tier 3. Is that what's been described as the epidemiological levelling up?
Yes.
The fact that areas went up towards Tier 3. There was an option to bring some of this forward as well as introduce tighter measures within a tiers framework or a national circuit breaker. The PM was keen to see the economic impact of the various scenarios. So was this a meeting at which not just the strategic course going forward was debated?
Is this where the first words of what was there? Yeah, they were actually. What was it he said there? I just missed that. What he said.
Circuit breaker.
Circuit breaker.
I mean,
how did he know that? Circuit breaker. Is this the first time circuit breaker was mentioned and they all jumped on the verbal bandwagon?
It was reasonably clear we would need to take further action because of the tiers, the country moving up, the tiers as well as the regional fire breaks as they're described here, which we talked about before we talked about a national circuit breaker.
252878 is an email to you, I think, from an official in the Cabinet Office. After that Sunday meeting, it says Sunday meeting follow-up. Simon, is that Simon Ridley?
Yes.
You, Emma Payne. In the end, I thought
Sunday
that did what it needed to. What did the meeting do what it needed to?
Got everybody back from skiing.
I think the meeting, I wasn't party to the setting up, but the purpose of the meeting was to try and stand back a bit from from the sort of day to day sort of rush of meetings we'd been having, and again to set out where we were, the trajectories, how the policy was working on the ground, and to sort of debate what the options were without the meeting seeking to kind of come to a decision. It wasn't a decision-making meeting. It was a let's get the evidence out and sort of understand where we are and offer options meeting. And Ollie was one of the key members of the task force. He and Emma were the leads on a lot of the strategy work, and I think what he is saying here is we sort of successfully got the issues on the table and discussed the need for further action.
The conclusion: it's bad, but we aren't stampeding into lockdown. We push on tiers and we prepare for the big decision. The conclusion, that is, was broadly as we would have anticipated. What did you understand by Mr. Illott's reference to "it's bad"? What was that a reference? Did you understand it to was it a reflection of the general state of the country in terms of the spread of the virus and the terrible decisions which may then be necessary to take, or bad as in bad the Prime Minister's reaction?
My recollection of the time is that this was a description of where we were in terms of the condition of and prevalence of the virus in the country, and the need to suppress it.
In his notes, Sir Patrick Vallance refers to a meeting with you, 273901, page 597, Ridley meeting. Was there a meeting did you have a meeting with Sir Patrick Vallance separately from that meeting at Chequers on the 25th?
I expect I had a call with Patrick, possibly others ahead of that meeting to explain what I thought it was about and what we as the task force were intending to put into it.
Positioned PM meeting, that may be a reference to the forward strategy meeting, as a chance to step back but avoid making a whole load of decisions that then get undone by the Chancellor. I asked what the PM thinks objectives are. Quote, what he wants to achieve is a series of mutually incompatible options. Did you say that?
I mean, I don't recall exactly what I said, but it's perfectly plausible because we were, wrestling the need to suppress the virus with the consequences of a lockdown, and we were at the point where we were going to have to do one or the other.
It's well funny.
In blunt,
it's not funny. It's disgusting.
With strategy meeting to try to put the Prime Minister in a position of being able to make a decision, perhaps including a national lockdown, in a way that wouldn't result in him changing his mind or being, quote, undone by the Chancellor.
I mean, yeah, I think we were.
Oh, we weren't given any choice.
Wouldn't stick.
Oh, forced.
Space to explain.
He made me do it.
Where we were, the likely future path, and the implications of that.
It was bigger, boys, Mum. The reference to the Prime Minister being positioned, or rather the meeting being positioned, and to the strategic aim of trying to avoid decisions but then get undone.
It was bigger, boys.
And to the possibility that the Prime Minister was regarded as wanting to achieve mutually.
Zim.
Task force trying to usurp, perhaps, the discretion of the Prime Minister to try to push him towards an outcome, to achieve an end. Would you agree?
Certainly not trying to usurp the position of the Prime Minister. It was our job, as we've described, to pull information evidence together and to give advice and make recommendations. We'd made recommendations on the 7th of October, where we had thought that essentially regional circuit breakers was necessary.
See, recommendations, yeah? This is what you get when you have, what was it? Fucking collective fucking responsibility.
Recall where the meeting came from, but it was a chance to explain with more space the issues. I think at this point,
which were
my and our view, we needed to take further action.
My and our view, our or hit
to strong enough measures quickly enough, but I don't think we were doing anything other than trying to give advice.
Just talking, right?
28th of October.
I think we were.
I think in the name of James Bowler.
You should know where you were because you got a procedure and you're following it step by step, right?
In which, and the handwriting is that of the Prime Minister, the note provided an update of a COVID strategy following discussion on Sunday. It is for information, not for decisions. In essence, the note told the Prime Minister that the situation had continued to deteriorate. It said, we do not expect the counter...
Somebody wrote across the bottom of the page, we don't stand a chance or something, and somebody crossed it out and put, we are fucked.
Or at the bottom of that page, there are
a different meeting.
The grave figures given about the spread of the infection.
It's all gibberish as well.
Scroll quickly through the document. Page 2, paragraph 6. There's a reference to national interventions being deployed in France, Germany, Ireland, Italy.
Oh, they're doing it, so we've got to. No fucking lemons, right? Anyway, I'll bugger off out of the way for a sec.
Paragraph 7. You don't expect that the tiers will work because most of England will move quickly to the current tiers policy. That's the epidemiological levelling up. Page 3, paragraph 10. We're considering a range of options should you choose to act in November. The Prime Minister says, why not put everyone into level 3? And then he provides his handwritten comments on pages 7 and 8. And I've taken the hint from a lady. I'm not going to put to you what you think of his comments. They're a matter for the Prime Minister. But essentially, he expresses his terrible frustration at the conundrum in which he is being placed. Paragraph 4. What do we really achieve by smashing up the economy if we have no idea how many times we're going to...
Did you see the page before where it said yes across the bottom of the page? Yeah, that's the mentality, right? The environment, they're the products. That's the product of the environment. These boys and girls are fucking brought up in. Yeah, scribbling like that. Yes, across the bottom of the page. Unreal. Madness.
It might be worth just reflecting on paragraph 22 or point 22.
It is Boris.
He raises
we know what he's like.
the issue of whether or not
and he has
there can
done
be
a
an
lot of
analysis
writing,
of quality adjusted life
keeping it
years.
straight, but fair dues.
And he asks for serious economic analysis, finishing with the words, "We're causing such long-term poverty that we need to consider jacking in essentially this strategy." Why wasn't all that information in that
So
note
he
from
was
the COVID
worried.
task force?
He was
put
worried.
into-
See, Boris's thoughts are on the paper, but nobody was listening to him, or he wasn't reading it out, or he's reading out and writing down just what other people are doing and saying. See, so is somebody just reading that out, and he's because it was all the same, wasn't it? Like he'd written it continuously. It wasn't notes, that. It was as if somebody told him to write that down. Anyway, thanks for joining me. It's Dodgy Git Show. Thanks for joining me. This is show two fat ladies, 88.
This note came about in terms of trying to take forward some of the issues that came out of the meeting on the 25th. I mean, I should say the decisions here are incredibly difficult. I mean, I don't demur from that at any point. I have every, the Prime Minister was in a position where he was having to make exceptionally tough decisions that were going to have, significant negative impacts on a number of people, whichever way he went. He already had, and he was going to have to. I think the plan that we had worked very hard with colleagues across government to put in place around local restrictions, test and trace and isolate, and all these issues we had been doing for the last few months, and a number of these questions are in other notes and other discussions and other bits of advice. But we were at this point in time where it was our judgment that, where we had got to, we were at a point where to suppress the virus sufficiently, we were now going to need to take further action. We went back, I think, to the. I think the Prime Minister's direct notes here got formally put to us through his private office. I suspect it was in an email from Imran, and we sought to go back on those issues. But at this point, we were, I think, heading towards needing to take further restrictive action to reduce social contact.
The Prime Minister did not, as a result of this advice, dated the 28th of October, order a national lockdown, did he?
No, we continued implementing what we had been since the 9th of October.
Yes. So 2 days later, the COVID task force sent another advice to the Prime Minister, did it not?
I think we did a paper for a further paper for discussion on the 30th. Yes.
2 days later, the COVID task force again sought to promote a debate about a national lockdown because 146710
They wanted it. No
you
one else.
presented a paper to COVID-0. Was that strategy for COVID-0 or for the Prime Minister?
It was a discussion that the Prime Minister had, I think, with the
It's just a discussion.
Health Secretary, the Chancellor, and CDL, Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, which was a COVID-0 discussion that agreed what became the second lockdown.
What part of the process was this document?
Putting aside the issue of why you returned yet again with another piece of advice in short order, in quick succession, why was this advice addressed to COVID-0 and not to the Prime Minister directly?
I suspect there was a discussion with the. There may well have been a discussion with the Prime Minister before we got to the COVID-0 meeting that day. I can't remember the precise sequence, I'm afraid.
It's a relatively short note. If we can just scroll through, it's only 2 pages. And it essentially says the epidemiological position is that we must have a national lockdown, and it recognises, of course, the significant impact on jobs and the economy in paragraph 9. Why wasn't that call to the Prime Minister for a national lockdown put into the paper or the meeting or the debate 2 days earlier on the 28th?
So, I mean, to be honest, I can't recall exactly over these few days why the sequence of the papers. I think it was reasonably clear we would need to take further action in the direction of that. We set that out for information for the Prime Minister, as you've said, on the 28th, and that led to this meeting on the 30th that made the decision.
The suggestion I put to you, Mr. Ridley, is that the COVID task force, obviously for credible and proper reasons, was seeking to manage the Prime Minister. It was advocating a national lockdown, and when the Prime Minister essentially resisted in the strategy meeting and 2 days later ordering such a lockdown, the COVID task force returned to the issue again to say to the Prime Minister, our recommendation is a national lockdown. You repeatedly tried to secure that end. Is that a fair summary?
I don't think so. If you go back, I mean, I mean, just going back to the 7th of October, we were recommending strong regional circuit breakers in line with the overall approach the government was taking of not wanting to act through a national lockdown, but we were saying that to suppress the virus in the highest prevalence places, we needed to take stronger action than we're currently taking. That became negotiations, which we then worked extremely hard with colleagues across government to put in place immediately from the next day, with lots and lots of councils across the northwest, northeast, and Yorkshire. We ran those concurrently over a number of days. That proved. Through those discussions, we did not get to agreement with lots of areas for stringent enough measures. So we were not making the virus was continuing to spread and spread rapidly because the pressures that was putting in on the health system and elsewhere. We then therefore came back to the discussion of the action we should take explored the issues with the Prime Minister on the 25th, sent him further information in the wake of that on the 28th, and then made the recommendation for the national lockdown only on the 30th.
Was the decision taken by COVID-O, the Prime Minister, or Cabinet?
The decision was taken by COVID-O, which I think on that occasion was attended by the Prime Minister, the Chancellor for the Duchy of Lancaster, the Health Secretary, and the Chancellor. Given what you've said about the possibility of the tier system being proposed and implemented in September, and whether or not that gave rise to a possibility that a lockdown may not have been necessary, do you consider that the national lockdown, the second one, was avoidable in any way? I mean, I honestly don't think I know, I'm afraid. I think that the second, I mean, it's, as I think we were said earlier, we would have had a better chance of avoiding the second lockdown if we had taken stronger action regionally, sooner, successfully established isolation through the period, successfully got broader compliance with regulations and with other guidance, which is what the government was pursuing. We didn't, and we ended up there. I think there are difficulties with a regional approach generally because of movement. We do not have the way the governance of the country works, implementing regional measures on a broad enough geography is quite.
He thinks based on a theory about his opinion, right? About a worry or a concern. Did they compound each other's worries until they were so paranoid nobody actually checked what the fuck the thing was doing in the first place? Oh, he needs a drink. He don't know where he's going, does he?
I mean, as I think I've said, I certainly think we should have taken stronger action earlier. In hindsight, if you like, the regional approach.
Oh, hindsight. It's useful, that, isn't it? Hindsight. Imagine if we all had hindsight.
Better. But that, as we know, comes with other consequences.
No shit, Sherlock.
I asked you questions about data. Did the CTF create a small team to examine data on disproportionately impacted groups in the summer of 2020?
We need more input.
Yes, we did. I mean, actually, to do more than examine data, to look at the data that was there, understand it, and to develop a set of propositions for what we should do to address the substantive issues.
Secondly, did the CTF take part in the process of trying to draw up, or rather directing the drawing up of regulations, the regulations which governed us all,
I'm not getting in the way,
in reflection of the policy decisions that were being taken, or was that a matter for the Department of Health?
So we had a team in the task force that essentially drew together the policy decisions and essentially.
Oh, there you go. See, when we got there, collective responsibility leads to zero transparency. There it is.
I know there are a number of questions from the core participants, but I don't know what time constraints are being placed on them.
Mr.
Hello,
Thomas,
Mom.
you can't deceive me by moving places with Mr. Weatherby.
Ha.
Good afternoon, Mr. Ridley. My name's Leslie Thomas and I act on behalf of the Federation of Healthcare Organisations.
Easy,
I've got
Leslie.
a small handful of questions for you.
Here we go. Hang on.
In your statement, you describe a number of meetings in 2020 regarding NHS capacity. So, for instance, at paragraph 49 of your statement, you say, quote, NHS capacity was the paramount, immediate and urgent concern at the outset of the pandemic, and prevalence grew and hospitalisations rose quickly. Question. Did safety of NHS staff feed into those discussions?
Yes, they did, and they were certainly a consideration of the NHS leadership.
Mind the way.
To what extent, if any, was there discussion about vulnerability of NHS staff?
There was, I think, discussion of vulnerability of NHS staff. It was a matter that was being addressed and led by the NHS.
Well, let me just add this. This was aware of data from Public Health England, dashboard meetings and
They were telling themselves then? What?
outcomes amongst black ethnic minority healthcare workers. That's correct, isn't it?
That is correct.
All right. So what was the response to that?
So in response to that, we set up the team I was referring to with Mr. Keith a moment ago on...
Hand on face, he doesn't know. It's the scream. Ah, get me out of here.
It wasn't about particular sectors of workers, but there was there was a lot of data, as you say, about worse outcomes for different ethnic groups.
So he says, as you say, so he reflects it back and tries to make it his, so he doesn't have to claim anything on it. They don't want to be accountable for anything, these people, nothing at all. They wouldn't write their name on their own checks out of fear something might go wrong.
The Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government to lead that across government, to look at that data and to look at what policy or operational changes we should make across government and across different sectors to address those issues. That very much included the Department
Why are penguins good racing car drivers?
the Department for Transport. A lot of public-facing roles, such as were important. The implications for around worse housing were important. Multi-generational households were important. That came to a COVID.
Because they're always in pole position. Is he trying to bring as many different things in there to obfuscate the question as possible? He'll lose himself and the bloke.
Hester wrote to his cabinet colleagues in the wake of that. That came back to a further COVID discussion in October, and a set of decisions. And the Minister for Equalities, who I think at the time was Kemi Badenoch, MP, gave a quarterly update starting in October about those issues, and we put in place a number of policy measures, particularly working closely with local authorities and directors of public health.
Thank you. I'm just going to remind you just to slow down a bit.
Sorry.
I didn't want to interrupt you, but
I've done all right.
You were going at a pace there.
My apologies.
Right. Let me move on to the second question that I have. Your statement states that on the 20th of March 2020, it was noted that hospitals had limited PPE stock, and that as a COVID-19 strategy ministerial group meeting on the 13th of April, the lack of clear strategy in relation to PPE was discussed. Now, Mr. Ridley, let me just put this to you. You accept, do you not, that adapted personal protective equipment, PPE, for ethnic minority healthcare staff is relevant for several reasons during a public health crisis such as this? You would accept that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, it's important that we had the right PPE, yes.
So, my question is, were any concerns raised about black, Asian, minority ethnic healthcare workers requiring adapted PPE? For instance, taking into account cultural, religious considerations, diversity in terms of body sizes, shapes, language barriers, anything like that.
So,
it's all covered by standard practice, right?
My recollection in this area is one that I think came up in an earlier hearing where Helen McNamara raised PPE for women. That issue came to a discussion later. I think it was in April, where Lord Stevens responded around some of the broader adaptive PPE that was needed. But I don't have further recollections about the different types of PPE and precisely what was needed. The focus for myself and the team in the Cabinet Office was in making sure.
See, I'm straight back to standard practice. Standard practices. There should be standard practices within all of it, and they should be able to refer to it openly, just like a mechanic should be able to refer to the documentation that says exactly which page said what torque loading he did your wheel nuts up on your car at. Yeah? So if your mechanic can do that, yeah, why can't you? Have you written a book yet? Or haven't you bothered? Does writing the book scare you? Huh? That's it, love. You take your glasses off. You've probably had enough as well, ain't you, darling? Anyway, we go back to this guy.
Raised with me, there was a discussion about PPE where Lord Stevens broadened that out to the different types of PPE and different adaptations.
Oh, it's always a discussion, and then he just blamed it on somebody else that broadened it out. Meaning raised the whole thing of, hang on, we ain't thought about this other shit yet, have we?
Detailed procurement of PPE was not something that was part of what I was responsible for.
So you can't assist us as to what action, if any, was taken in relation to concerns that were raised?
I cannot.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Mr. Mennell.
Easy now, Mum.
Thank you, my lady.
You, my lady, your honour.
Mr. Ridley, I asked questions on behalf of a number of children's rights organisations.
Go for it, bro.
Earlier today, you told Mr. Keith that the role of the CTF was to provide policy advice to the PM.
Scare the crap out of you if he shouted, wouldn't he?
Pharmaceutical interventions. Was there any about the fundamental differences between how
Bring the cop!
restrictions impact children as opposed to adults?
Yes, there was a lot of discussion.
And what was the nature of that discussion?
I mean,
I don't know, can't get into it. I'm going to put my head on my hands, so fucked up and knackered and want to go home.
Education,
and schooling. There were discussions about the implications for caring and very young children, and indeed some of the reforms of MPIs that we made in the autumn.
MPIs.
Well, some of those were about addressing issues as they pertain to particularly very young children and children with particular disadvantages and needs.
Was there a recognition that isolation of children is simply not comparable to isolation for adults, as the inquiry heard in October from a professor of public health? Was there that kind of recognition?
So we certainly had discussions about the consequences of and risks of isolation. I can't recall detailed discussion about how the differential impacts of isolation in great detail between different groups, but certainly in thinking about policy, as I say, we were taking into account the differences for children.
Are you going so far as saying that there was a recognition that the restrictions had a disproportionate impact on children within the COVID task?
No, I'm saying there was a recognition that the restrictions.
Well, they didn't they? He's trying to make him trip over.
Negative consequences on a wide range of the population. I cannot recall specific.
Can't remember
the sort of detail of differences.
And he's not allowed to differentiate between one and the other. So why are these two? Why are these two gentlemen trying to trip him up, sort of on purpose there?
Scotland relaxed the social distancing rules for children under the age of 12, and later in September, Wales relaxed the social distancing rules in relation to children under 11. Were you aware of that at the time on the CTF?
Yes, we were aware of that. We did a lot of engagement with the devolved administration.
At the time of the CTF?
Led into any changes for children in England, did it?
No, we retained the...
What was the difference?
In terms of the...
How can you use the same advice in two different places, two different ways around?
So, I mean, it was
That's what we're here for.
Between, if you like, the clarity and simplicity of a single number for gathering versus the fact that different exceptions and
no, I don't explain.
Different rules for different types of people could better adapt to the variety of household and family structures, but brought with it more complexity. And in the end, we in terms of gathering limits, we stayed with simple numbers of individuals.
What is complex about removing restrictions for children under the age of 12? It's simple and straightforward. Everybody can understand that.
I mean, with all these things, it was a judgment. We were discussing the
judgment, eh?
The guidance and the regulations.
I'll blame it on everything else.
To address different impacts for different types of people, as we try to address the different way in which people live their lives, which is inherently incredibly complicated and varied across the country.
No one is the same, right?
As in the round, and that in itself became a problem. It became harder to communicate it. I'm not seeking to say we got all these judgments right. There may well be restrictions we put in place that we shouldn't have done, and exceptions we put in place that we'd have been better off not doing. But we were trying to strike a balance overall between enough clarity to communicate what the rules were and enough complexity, if you like, to try and mirror the fact that society is complicated and the inherent harms for different types of people are different.
But are you saying, I just want to be clear about this, are you saying that the CTF positively advised the UK government not to go down the route that Scotland went down in July and Wales went down in September?
I confess on this issue, I cannot completely recall what we advised. We definitely knew about it. We definitely discussed it. We would have.
He's trying to get him to trip over.
Together, there was certainly advice we put about the choice between gathering limits about simple numbers of people and gathering limits about different numbers of households, and we had those debates. I'm afraid I can't tell you in the room exactly what we recommended at different points.
And was that based on any evidence or any research, or was that simply a decision plucked out of thin air?
A whim.
Based on evidence and research we had.
You Google it.
And were aware of at the time.
No, in that place it was probably fucking Ask Jeeves, wasn't it?
Across the piece, making a series of judgments both in our advice and in the decisions that ministers ultimately made.
What evidence?
Yeah.
What evidence that the English model was better than the Scottish model?
Yeah.
Well, we didn't have any evidence that the English model was
You just
better
said you
than
had
Scottish.
evidence.
Yeah.
That's why I'm
No,
asking what
sorry,
evidence.
they're different
There you
types
go.
of-
Just
different-
fell
different-
over.
I was saying where there was evidence
It seems
available and we
like-
were aware of it in general about the impact of different gathering limits, and it was pretty scant, I should say, because we were doing this was all new. We sought to
Oh, I
use
thought it was coming in from
There was not
everywhere.
a
I thought you were
comparison, as I
overwhelmed
recall,
with
between the
information coming in.
efficacy, either in terms
Thinking
of
about all these different things. So it's
the impact as part of a set of
Yeah, but-
MPIs, nor in terms of families. At the time we were taking these decisions in the autumn of 2020, that in detail compared those.
Who do you reckon else going to be in his cell, you reckon? Do you reckon there'd be anybody very nice in his cell? Yeah? Yeah? You're like fucking Gandalf's fucking coat, wasn't he? Yeah. Fucking sleeve of it. Yeah. Yeah. Look like Gandalf's cuff, wasn't he, when he's been finished with, I should think. Yeah? Be able to hide the fucking snooker set up there, wouldn't you?
Why then only children under the age of 12? I mean, why not children under the age of 5? Why not children under the age of 12 as other?
See, they're saying they're not differentiating because of the evidence suggests they should do this and do that, and then they've differentiated, and he's caught them out. Yeah, he's differentiated between Scotland and English kids and whether they're 12 or 5 or they're an adult, when in actual fact none of it meant anything this way or that way, because the evidence they say they had was just all freaking word of mouth, wasn't it? It's unreal. It's unreal what this. Yeah. Oh no, I'm Dodgy Get. This is the Dodgy Get show. We got the Covid-19 inquiry live here with this dude. I can't even, they'll bring his name up soon enough. He's being questioned and in half tripping over. He's struggling. I reckon he'll pour some more water soon. How much water he got left in that glass? I reckon he'll pour the water, and you got to watch. Oh, no, you got a bit of water left. Watch the water, because when there's so much water down, he'll need a wee.
Children's rights organisations, and indeed the Children's Commissioner for England, Anne Longfield, were calling for children to be exempt from social distancing rules, as there was.
You see why this is important? This is our kids, man.
Being of these rules. Were you aware of that on the CT?
I'm sure we were. I cannot give you specific recollection.
I'm sure we were. See how he just fucks it? Don't know what he's saying.
Government and beyond to try and maximise the information we had. We won't, as I say, that won't always have been complete.
Finally, this, on the issue of disproportional impact, could we please have on the screen 137239? Mr. Keith had this on the screen earlier. This is the recovery strategy from July
Is that woman sucking her thumb?
2020.
Let's cut back to that geezer. Is that woman sucking her thumb? I really hope that grown woman of what maybe
Thank you.
isn't
And if we could
sucking
turn
her
to page 10, please, top of page 10.
There we go, top page 10, that doc, go and have a look it up. Yeah, bring
I'll
it
just
up.
read this out. We now have sufficient testing capacity. No, sorry, that's the wrong page. 1 second.
Next one. I like
just finding it on my
page.
laptop.
Oh, bugger.
Sorry, Mr. Ridley, 1 second. Yes, while these impacts have been widespread, that's the impacts of the rules and restrictions, they have not been equally distributed. Evidence shows the varying impacts on different groups of people or people with specific characteristics, including but not limited to BAME individuals, single parents, disabled individuals, victims of domestic abuse, and low-income groups, many of whom have been disproportionately affected. Now, I appreciate that it makes it clear here that this is not a full list, but it's right, isn't it?
It's just, he just said that they hadn't been disproportionately affected.
Of the disproportionate impact of the rules and restrictions on children.
See where he's just fucked up.
So, I mean, you are right that this list does not include children specifically. I don't think we would have, I mean, they would have been included in terms of our thinking about disabled groups, black and minority ethnic and low income groups. But
It's what happens when people have got too much information in front of them, yeah? When these chaps are all sat around the boardroom and they're all trying to focus on a specific line, there's too much going on, including the light that's on. Yeah, they can't focus. None of them have read it. None of them know what's in it, I should think, because none of them have probably read it properly because they're all distracted because we're humans and we fuck up. And you're in a boardroom and there's 400 other people all going, oh yeah, where is it? Oh yeah, I don't know.
About the impact of lockdown on education and on schools, and sort as far as possible to keep schools open and to maximise the support when they were not.
I mean, and with the exception of that single issue of the reopening of schools, I mean, this is it not, largely a recovery strategy for adults as opposed to children?
I mean, this was a recovery strategy applied to across the whole country. I agree. There is not detail in here on children in the round. When we get to the winter plan in the autumn, we do seek to increase the flexibility around some of the constraints for some groups of children through the widening of support bubbles. But you're right.
The widening of support bubbles. That's all they come up with, wasn't it? Oh, people around them will help.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Metzer.
Thank you, my lady. Mr. Ridley, I have a few questions on behalf of the long COVID groups on 3 short topics. First, long COVID and the plans in response to the pandemic. Can you help us, please, as to why there was no reference to long COVID in the COVID winter plan of November 2020, when the DHSC had issued a public statement warning of the risk of long COVID just a month earlier?
We were focused in the winter strategy about the plan to try and keep the suppression of the virus low enough to.
Whilst this dude trips over his words again, I'd just like to say thank you very much to everybody that has subscribed, everybody that has liked anything that I've produced, or that has watched any of my content. Thank you very much for being part of what I hope to be something other than nothing. Yeah. Thanks for joining me. I hope you're finding the content I create overwhelmingly stimulating, to all of your senses, including more. I hope you find this stuff interesting. I hope you're following. I hope you understand why I want this sort of thing aired publicly and for a forum in the chat. That's their stream chat. Yeah, because their chat is disabled and their comments are disabled. people like me create stuff like this to get the chat and the comments back so we can see what you all think about it. Anyway, I'm really not liking the way he fumbles his word around. I'm a bit behind lagging, so I'm going to click us live. We're going to skip a little bit. You know what he's on about. It's kids, vulnerabilities, clinical this, that, and the other, bubbles, right? So we'll click on probably a few seconds. Right, I'll let you get back to it. We're coming up to an hour, so thanks very much for everybody that's joining in. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I'm sharing my love with you, so you can share your love around. Yeah, you'll have some love in your heart. You can go and share that with other people, won't you? Hey, right, I'll shut up. I'll let this waffler waffle on. I'll try and budge my melon out of the way as well. I'm not going on the cup of tea. See you in a sec. Lots of love.
Put in place the policies to keep the level of the virus under control, and I think there was a lot of communication about the potential risks to COVID, albeit that we weren't discussing long COVID in and of it by that table.
Secondly, advice given to the Prime Minister on long COVID. Did the CTF advise the Prime Minister on the risk of long COVID before January 2021?
I'm not sure that we put specific advice up about long COVID as sort of labelled as such. We were concerned about the risks of high prevalence to those that are most vulnerable.
So is that an agreement that the CTS didn't advise him before then?
I don't recall notes from us on long COVID specifically.
On the 13th of April 2021, the CTF produced a detailed paper, In-Depth Long COVID, which covers prevalence of long COVID, its socio-economic impacts, including the economic cost of workplace absenteeism, and the cost of long COVID in QALYs, and its impact on the health system. We don't need to go to it. The reference is 292660. I'm sure you know of it. Why did the COVID task force produce this paper?
This was a paper that was produced by our data and analysis team, a part of it, which over the course of, particularly from sort of, I think, November, December 2020 onwards, did a number of pieces of work in depth on different aspects of COVID and different implications. We did similar bits of work on educational impacts and so on and so forth. I think the reason we did one on long COVID at this point was because it was an issue that was coming more towards the forefront. There was also more information and more evidence about it. I think it's about the same time the ONS have started to collect data on long COVID, and the purpose of us doing these notes in general, including this one, was to pull that information together from across government so that we had the best and most rounded picture of it that we could have to inform future decision making, which in this case was the opening up from the third lockdown.
Do you consider that this paper had any impact at all on government discussions on long COVID?
I would like to think so, yes.
Can you elaborate at all? Can you assist us?
I think if you turn to the February roadmap that we published to set out the plans for opening after the third lockdown, I don't think it refers to long COVID by name, but we're very clear about the risk of extended symptoms for a number of people as a result of catching COVID, and that was informing the way in which we wanted to open up and the length of time between steps to make sure we did that in as successful a fashion as possible.
Do you agree that long COVID was known about well before April 2021, wasn't it?
Yes.
Last area I want to ask you about, COVID-19 dashboards on long COVID. Why was the data on long COVID gathered by the DHSC and the ONS excluded from the COVID-19 dashboard?
Look at his face. That's a fucking
don't recall
picture.
that it was fully. The ONS data we we put through the dashboard. We could only show a portion of the data we had available at any one meeting. I don't think there was a decision to exclude it.
Well, Mr. Ridley, do you agree with me that the data on long COVID was in fact never featured as part of the COVID-19 dashboard?
I honestly can't recall all the dashboards. You may be right, but I don't know.
On the assumption that is right, do you agree that not feeding this available data on long COVID into the main COVID-19 dashboard deprived you, the CTF, and thereby the public, of vital information on the prevalence of long COVID?
No, I don't think I do agree with that. I mean, as we've just discussed, we'd done a overall evidence and analysis note on long COVID. The ONS collected long COVID data. That ONS data was very, very widely available across government, including the task force and the Cabinet Office, but across other departments as well. And it was fantastic that the ONS were collecting it.
Yes, but the absence of available data on long COVID meant surely that there was insufficient information, such that that might have meant that long COVID was not.
What is long COVID?
As the ONS started to collect data, we had more information on long COVID. I think there was a debate and a degree of a lack of clarity about exactly what long COVID referred to specifically. There was clarity that there was a risk of long-term sufferance from symptoms for a number of people who caught COVID. We sought to reflect that in the policy we made, particularly through 2021, and the data that was available as a result of the ONS's work was very widely available.
More generally, but the available data on long COVID didn't feed in, did it, to the COVID-19 dashboard, which was significant?
Well, I mean, as I say, I don't recall exactly what was and wasn't in all of the different dashboard meetings. I think it's worth saying the COVID-19 dashboard wasn't every day. Baseline and a bedrock for ministers to have the Prime Minister to have a common understanding of where we were, but the data we couldn't go through all the available data at every dashboard. So
I screwed that up. What I just said was who had control of the dashboard, who amended it, who updated it, and who was accountably responsible for it to be updated or to reflect accurately what was coming in.
Producing their own long COVID dashboard, so the data was available. Do you agree?
Yes, there was data available. I do agree.
Yes, thank you very much.
The data available, but not on the dashboard.
Thank
is
you,
that right?
Mr. Metzer.
Cheers.
Thank
then.
you very much, Mr. Ridley.
Cheers then.
Very
Thanks
grateful for your staying as long as you have done. We'll break now. I've been asked to take a break, and I shall return at 3:05.
All right. Fair dues. Everybody, all rise, isn't it? All rise. Yeah, bow. Have a little bow. There we go. Right, there we go. We'll click the live button. We'll probably, they're normally 10 or 15 minutes. Right, hang on. Let me bring myself back in the room. Back in the room. Back in the room. Where am I? There I am. Back in the room. Back in the room. There we are. Hello, everybody. I'm Dodgy Kit. Peekaboo. Yeah, I'm Dodgy Kit. This is the Dodgy Kit show. Got a fire on the TV. No, yeah, picture. Yeah. Yeah, thanks for joining me. What do you think of that show then, eh? Eh? Personally, I think it's a fucking load of waffle. Yeah? A fuckload of I don't know, isn't it? A fuckload of shit, I haven't got it in front of me. I thought I read something on a screen once somewhere. Did we go to that meeting? Was that the one with the cakes? Yeah, it's that sort of attitude from them, I think. They're lost, they don't know. There's too much information. There's too much information. There's too much information coming in. There's too much information for them to deal with. Too much information for them to process. And right, I just glanced down and we've gone past an hour, right? And fair enough, they've gone off for a wee and a fucking. What's the judge gonna do? What's the first thing the judge gonna do? Straight out the back for a smoke. You know she is, right? Go fuck it, what a load of bollocks. Yeah? Dashboard. Tools. We were talking about tools in show 87, at the end of show 87. Yeah, tools. Dashboards. Do you know what a dashboard is? Yeah? Dashboard. You have a dashboard on your car, don't you? It tells you essential information. Yeah? On your car, excuse me, I've got itchy nose. No. You got a dashboard on your vehicular, ain't you? Just fucking in your car. You got a fucking dashboard. You got essential fucking ingredients on there. Know what the fuck's going on with it? Is it about to blow up? How fucking fast am I going to hit this wall? Yeah. How much can I make the engine scream? Yeah. Has it got 9,000 screams? Yeah. Yeah. Shit like that. Yeah. Dashboard. So within industry, fucking any industry, pretty much, we use dashboards. Yeah. Essential information brought in by the sensors that you've put out there. Managers of departments. Yeah. Structure to the managerial system structure. Yeah. So the sensors come in onto your dashboard and you can see what the fuck's going on. Yeah. My main problem in my last job is I couldn't see anything. Yeah. It was all old or yesterday's or yeah. Or well, this is for next week. It's like, well, fucking, what's here now? Now, I want to go and pick it up off the shelf. Yeah. Oh, we only got one. That's allocated to something else. Oh, when's that job due? Oh, July. We fucking get it. Order another one. Shit like that. It's a joke. It was a joke. I went round and round in circles for fucking ages. Oh, piss off with that thing. Fucking thing. So we use dashboards in industry as a tool for managers to see what's going on out there. Yeah? Yeah, in their factories and no windows where they can't see anyone or anybody or anything. Yeah, or sat at a fucking office behind a grey fucking screen. This is my pod. This is my cell. They even call them cells, don't they? You're in a cell. Yeah, fucking is as well. Processed through cells. See? Why? It's quality assurance. Yeah? You make your production the Swiss cheese pack, yeah, of slices, and every slice has got at least one hole in it. Yeah. Error management, quality control, tools. Talk about legislation being fluid documents. Yeah, they're tools. When the government say, oh, well, we have certain tools at our disposal, that means there's documents there reflecting what their abilities are. Yeah, what they're capable of. Capability. Yeah, what's our capability today? Oh, what? Really? Fucking hell, I'd be going nuts. I'd be going absolutely nuts. Oh, there's a little tiny spider running down my curtain. Hello, Mr. Spider. I'll let him go. I like spiders. Catch flies, I fucking hate them. They're fucking pointless, apart from to feed fucking spiders with. Yeah, so you got this fucking stuff in place. These tools. Yeah, most people think, oh, what's a tool? Oh, it's hammer, saw, chainsaw, axe, yeah? No, fucking tools. This fucking tie's a tool. This jumper's a tool. Keeps you warm, yeah? Tie's cool. Stops the fucking breeze going down there and get chilly, yeah? Fills in that gap as well, we're saying, doesn't it, eh? Tools. Yeah, you need tools to keep your fire, don't you? Hey, back in the day, you'd have a dustpan and brush, wouldn't you? A proper one, made by a blacksmith. Out of metal, yeah. Fucking nothing like. I love that. They make a fucking plastic fucking dustpan and brush for hot ash. Clever. Fucking funny. Funny, peculiar, not funny, ha ha. Yeah, funny, peculiar. Funny what we make. Yeah, you need tools for that, don't you? Hand tools. Fucking hell, you need tools to cut the fucking tree down. Cut it into the size you need. You need a fucking axe. Who's going on about a fucking axe and a chainsaw shit? You need tools. But tools are lots of other things. Tool is just the ability to overcome the problem, right? I need to break this fucking egg. Hit it with half a brick then. That didn't work. Fucking right mess now. How the fuck am I going to get that in the van? Right? So you'd adapt, wouldn't you? Yeah? So you adapt yourself and the tools you use. Yeah? God blimey, go back to the barber surgeons, look how they used to advise the blacksmith on how to make tools. Sharp tools, hard metal. Yeah, mate, you don't want to make it out of this. It's fucking super brittle little fucking break. Yeah, but mate, it's fucking hard as hell, innit? You only need a little bit there, and it's fucking hard as anything, and you'll be able to sharpen that down to a fucking, that'll be super sharp. If you drop it, it'll snap in two. Yeah? But it'll be sharp as you like. Yeah. So we have all these things in place. Tools in place. And the tools are in place, part of a system, isn't it? System of producing something, anything. Producing a just outcome in court. Producing a fucking motor car in a factory. Producing a pair of fucking finely made, wonderfully beautiful leather shoes. It's all part of a process. To produce something. The right outcome, ideally, isn't it? Yeah? The right outcome. The resultant, what you want to achieve. Yeah? But when we go back and we talk to these people there at the government, and the way they don't know what they're doing, and they're not sure who was responsible for what, yeah? And they all blame the team, yeah? There's zero accountability, and I can't stand it. Part of the process is to be accountable. Process of making shoes, right? Process. You go from one machine or table of tools to either cut, fold, crease, buckle, put a hole in, crimp, iron, flatten, thin, thicken, fucking anything, yeah? Workstations, in cells, until you get your product you want, yeah? Part of that, yeah? Let's say we're making shoes and we're at the cell of the shoemaking process, yeah? That puts, let's say, we'll be making a pair of fucking classic Oxfords or something, right? What do you want? You want 3 holes in there or something either side, didn't you? Right? So you go onto the machine to make these fucking holes. And for some reason, as the machines come down, it's just kicked a loose piece of leather or something that was over there. And it's kicked your leather and, and you fucked the whole thing up. You fuck the whole thing up and you look at it and you go, oh fucking hell, I fucked it up. I'm gonna get a bollocking because I fucked it up. And you think, oh fucking hell, I'll do another one. You fucking done another one. The fucking thing does the same thing. Oh shit, you can't hide two, like fucking this stuff's expensive, like he's gonna know. Better tell him. So you call your fucking supervisor, boss over, don't you? Go, excuse me boss, I fucked up. Again, back to what I was talking about. Teaching people that they're gonna fuck up. Affording them the space and the materials to fucking make the mistake. Yeah? Gonna screw it up. Yeah? But you'd have to report to your boss that an occurrence has happened, right? Something's occurred that isn't in the normal process. Then your fucking boss comes over and he might good boss, alright, thanks for telling me. Bad boss, you fucking fucked it up again too. How the fucking hell did you fuck up too? Yeah? So you do an investigation, yeah? Because an occurrence report's been raised. So you do an occurrence report investigation, right? And you go, well, what were you doing then? Oh, well, I had this piece of leather like this, and then that was like that, and then it kicked round like that. Oh, they're back. Hang on. And because you fed back, they'd look at it and they'll go, oh yeah, look, Sid keeps putting all his fucking waste in a pile. Sid, why do you keep putting your waste in a pile? Oh, somebody took the bin last week, I don't know where it's gone. Something simple. But he didn't tell anyone his bin had gone because he thought he'd find it again or somebody had put it back. But it's created a problem in the process. Yeah, just so the waste was piling up, right? But you have an occurrence report. It's not really anyone's fault apart from the person that nicked the bin. Yeah? This is where you find out the bin's been fucking fined for 300 years. Yeah? They've been putting fucking fag butts, fucking half rats, fucking dead birds, fucking tissue paper, crisp packets, coffee cups, fucking everything else in there. And some clever dick, probably from the fucking, what was it I was talking about earlier? Fucking Spaniards fucking moaning. Yeah? Fucking economic migrants coming and imparting fucking legislative crap on industry in this country, like, oh, your bin isn't to EU standards. You need 14 different bins now. And you go, one, who the fuck are you? Two, what's wrong with my fucking bin? Three, why the fuck do I need 14? Oh, and then they bring in all the legislation, don't they? Then you got to start painting the factory floor and and it just goes on. And you think anybody actually produces any fucking shoes? Do they fuck? If they do you think they've got the time, money or inclination to write fucking procedural policy or raise occurrence reports for investigation by another free-reigning fucking staff member that's employed at fucking zero profit and maximum cost to your fucking industry? Do you do that to make sure that you gain proactive feedback within the process? As a small industry, you're probably doing it without even knowing it. When it gets to big industry and government like this, and when we're talking about systemic reform, this is the sort of systemic reform that's going to be coming in. Yeah? Continual improvement from proactive feedback. Yeah? Occurrence reports. It's part of the procedure to report anything out of the ordinary. Therefore, when a policeman wants to use a section 136 against somebody in their own private home, he better go and get a doctor. Yeah? He better not be of the opinion that he'll drag somebody's carcass outside and beat the shit out of them. And then go, oh no, sorry mate, actually not even fucking sorry, just get up and fuck off. Yeah? Triage. Safe and wellness checks. Thinking they know what's most appropriate. Yeah, they know how to get the right care. They've got no procedures and they hint at signposting. Don't have to follow that signpost, do you, mate? You can go any fucking direction you like. It's a fucking roundabout and everybody's just fucking going round and round and round it. Afraid to go anywhere. Yeah? Yes, occurrence report investigations done by people that aren't in-house, not affiliated, don't even fucking know the people, don't work with them, don't know them, completely independent. Unlike the police investigators who investigate the police, who all know each other because they all work in the same industry together, day in, day out. And they've got complacent in their old age. Not necessarily their old age, but the old age of the system that now has compounded feedback problems. It has compounded feedback problems. It's like if you got your computer now and totally blanked it. When you started it back up again, you imagine how long it'd take to update and fucking install everything and fucking clear this out and do that and reset that and fucking get rid of the crap that's in it and all that shit. Yeah? That's what's happened with the fucking procedures that the government and government systems is fucking functioning as. Yeah? Dysfunctioning. Yeah? Dysfunction, not functioning. I have to give that one to Rick Walker from Maverick Multimedia. Yeah, I'm not very good with vowels. Yeah, I muddle vowels up. Yeah, dis-ease. Dis, D-I-S. Ease. E-A-S-E. Dis-ease. Because you're not at ease, are you? Yeah, dis at ease. Dis-ease. Yeah. Yeah, words again. Won't go into spell. Lings. Spell being to play or go. Lings being fish. So, systemic change within the police, the NHS, the doctor's system, yeah, which is the fucking NHS in my, yeah, and the whole system of government. Yeah, it's not a case of rip it down and fucking, yeah, it's systemic change. The system allows change from continual continual improvement via the feedback we get from occurrence reporting. So when the copper has to make that decision, it'll be logged, won't it? Because he'll be following a procedure. When he gets there and something is not normal, there is a disturbance, yeah? And he deems it to be a crisis through his opinion or the refusal of the public to adhere to his opinion. Yeah? See how opinions create a crisis. Yeah? Then somebody can act because they're then deemed as a crisis. And actually, it's not a crisis at all. It's a difference of opinion. Yeah? Dangerous. Very, very, very dangerous ground we're on. Yeah. Especially because this is the other thing you can tell. You can tell a company immediately how good or bad they are. And it will shock you, probably surprise you anyway. Yeah. You say, oh, how many occurrences have you had in the last month, 3 months? And they go, oh, none. You're all right. So nobody's reported any then. And they look at you funny, like you've told them off. They're like, what? Yeah, you've had no occurrences in 3 months. That's really abnormal. Like, you would have thought somebody would have tripped, fallen over, bumped their head. Yeah, that's what the sick book's for. You remember the sick book? Yeah? But then the old thing comes in, doesn't it? Don't put your name in the sick book. Why not? Because you'll be a liability. Oh. So people then don't report it. Yeah? Oh, we don't want to be a liability. Go, yeah, manager reads that. What you should say is, good, then he'll see where exactly what needs fucking changing to keep me and my mates safe. Yeah, because I'm sick of walking up there and slipping. I'm sick of coming round there and the rail fucking woo. Yeah? Yeah? But when they don't do it, when it gets hidden, and the police say, for hours and hours they were fucking making excuses. Yeah? Say to the police, how many occurrences have you had? They'll go, none. You go, fuck, you're lying. You must be lying. It's unnatural to have none. Yeah? So you ask the police again, how many occurrences have you had? And they'll waffle round again, and they'll waffle round again, and they'll waffle round again. The truth is, they don't know. The truth is, they can't tell you either. Because they don't know. One, they don't acknowledge that. They won't admit that. And two, because they won't admit that, they will never change. They will never make the change. They will never admit the fuck up, the failure, the screw up. Yeah? The, oh yeah, but it was a fucking team meeting. Yeah? It's utter dog shit. Should we go back? See where these dudes are? Redress the balance, which I... He's got his popular. Should we listen in? Let's listen in for a little bit. Let's listen in for a little bit. Have I got... Ooh, getting a bit low there. I'll flick myself back into the corner. Oh, we got a slightly elderly, more elderly gentleman than the previous two were in. Let's see if he has gained any wisdom through the knowledge of doing what he does. Yeah, I'll shut up. I'll bring us up live, and I'll probably disappear for a few minutes. I'll be back in a bit, everybody. I'm Dodgy Git. This is Dodgy Git Show 88. It's two fat ladies. Thanks for joining me.
But the decision to go into lockdown is not an easy one, and there are conflicting issues which do need to be resolved and do need to be talked about.
Well, as you say, I'm going to come and ask you some separate questions about exactly that balance between the harms of lockdown and the benefits of it, both in terms of the first lockdown and later in the year. But just finally, still sticking in February for a moment, another theme of the evidence we've seen is that at around this time, Mr. Johnson was telling those around him that he thought what was happening was an overreaction, or at least that he was worried that there would be an overreaction to the pandemic as it was developing. Is that a concern that, first of all, you heard him express, and secondly, that you shared at that stage?
Well, I certainly shared that view. I think he did express that as well. I mean, I think everybody was very worried that we were overreacting to something which at that stage we didn't believe was going to be as bad as it subsequently became. And certainly it was largely confined to China.
Let's move on just a little bit, Lord Lister. If we can go to page 10 of your statement, please. It's at paragraph Lord 23. I just want to touch on the meetings that you described attending regularly, and I think, sorry, we're on, yes, that's it. So I still want to be asking you about that early period in, let's say, February and March, but I think this paragraph applies to that time.
Oh, I think I was skiing then, or was I playing golf in Spain? I can't remember.
Witnesses, for example, the 8:30 and then 9:15 meetings, the 9:15 meeting being the one with the Prime Minister, Cobra meetings whenever the Prime Minister attended, cabinet meetings, and so on. And you say also, if we can look at the next paragraph, that you regarded those meetings as an effective basis for decision making that was going on at the time. Just going back to the morning meetings for a moment, it's right, isn't it, that another of the regular attendees of those meetings in this period was Helen McNamara, the Deputy Cabinet Secretary.
Helen was in
and
the
you may have heard that her evidence about the atmosphere and discussion in the morning meetings during this period, so let's say February, March 2020, certainly the meetings that she attended, was that the atmosphere was, in her words, confident and macho. She said that wasn't a new thing, but that this atmosphere was, quotes, more so than usual. And she said the atmosphere was one of, quotes, we were going to be world-beating at conquering Covid-19 as well as everything else. Is that a description of those meetings that you recognise?
Well, I'm not so sure about the last statement you made. I don't recognise that. But yes, I think there was a great deal of confidence at that time that this was a disease. It wasn't going to be as serious as people made out.
What is it she said? It's like there's so it was. There was the confidence levels were like biblical or something like that. She said everyone was so confident. They're like, oh yeah, we can do this, we can do that. We're brilliant at this, we're brilliant at that. A fucking boys club again makes me laugh. Anyway, listen to this.
And there was a lot of other things that needed to be done. It's worth remembering that by then we were only now some 2 months from a general election, 2 months from the Brexit date. There was a lot of other things on the agenda.
Lord Lister, confidence is one thing, but the effect of Helen McNamara's evidence was not that the mood at these meetings was confident, but rather that it was overconfident. That wasn't something that she was saying in hindsight. She described being concerned about the overconfidence at the time. So is that something that you recognise?
I think what I recognise is that there was a belief that we had a health system that would be able to withstand it, that they had plans in place, it was well organised, it was well structured. And I don't want to jump forward too much, but it was only when we reached the Italian situation that it dawned on everybody that this wasn't like SARS in the Far East. This wasn't a relatively minor disease. This was serious. And so that was what, in the first week of March.
Yes. Well, let us move on to that period, only a week or so on from what we're discussing. If we can go, in fact, it's just a page or two back in your statement to page 8 and paragraph 21. So we say you're here describing a meeting in early March 2020, and approximately that is the time, isn't it, Lord Lister, when, amongst other things, it became apparent that the Italian, particularly in northern Italy and Lombardy, that the health systems there were struggling to cope. We saw images on the news and so on of hospitals being overwhelmed. That was the time of this meeting, was it?
Yes. I mean, and what was particularly striking about it was that the Italian health system was generally regarded as a pretty good health system, as good as the UK one. Yeah. So we were looking at a country that was very similar to ourselves.
Helen McNamara said, amongst other things, that she remembered around that time in those morning meetings there being a sense that we would do better than the Italians, almost as though that there was somehow a belief that they got it wrong, or that we would manage to not make the same mistakes as the Italians. Is that something you remember?
I'm not sure about that, but certainly I think yes, there was a feeling that we're going to do better than this. It's not going to be as bad as that. But I think we were still really in the position where we believed that the system had plans, that it would be able to cope with this. The health minister was confident. Everybody was confident.
Yes. Well, let's look at this paragraph. And for the first 5 or 6 lines of it, you essentially describe being briefed in a meeting in early March by Chris Whitty and Patrick Vallance about what we know and understand to be the mitigation strategy, herd immunity strategy. And clearly you were given that information. And then 4 or 5 lines up from the bottom, you say, on or around the 12th of March, you recall the Cabinet Secretary advising the Prime Minister to explain to the public that the government's plan to combat COVID-19 was akin to chickenpox parties. Again, that's something we've heard about in other evidence, but it's something you remember, is it, that Mark Sedwill using that term?
Well, I remember it being said. I can't tell you at what
We all used to say that.
which event or anything else now, but yes, it was made. But it was made in context. And for people of my age, that was how when we were young, that was how chickenpox was dealt with, and it was still a belief that COVID was something that. Herd immunity was the only answer. You needed to catch it quickly and get it over and done with.
Let's read on. Just the last few words of this page, and then we'll go to the next one. It was also in this context that the Prime Minister suggested to senior civil servants and advisers that he wanted to be injected with COVID-19 on television to demonstrate to the public that it did not pose a threat. And then you say that you appreciate the reflection
and all that
those were unhelpful comments, but they were made at a time of high stress and limited understanding
risk
of what
management
lay ahead.
error management there in place.
Of course, you weren't able to know, neither was Mr. Johnson, everything that would develop over the following weeks and months, Lord Lister. But I just want to take you back to what you tell us that Mr. Johnson said, that he wanted to be injected with COVID-19 to demonstrate to the public that it didn't pose a threat. It did pose a threat, didn't it?
Shocking, eh? Yeah, see?
I've got to go back again. It was not a.
They didn't know.
I'm a little bit uncertain
no
of timing
evidence, right?
of some of these things.
Who
But it
knows?
was
Who knows?
before
That's the thing.
the Italian situation had really become apparent to everybody.
Blame
It was a
someone
time when COVID was not seen as being the serious
Not seen.
disease
By
it
who?
subsequently
By
became
who?
or was seen to
Using
be.
what?
It was a moment in
Information
time.
and knowledge.
I think it was an unfortunate comment, but I think
it's
when you
unfortunate.
take it in the context,
Bloody
out of
shit.
context like now and in the timing, it was just an unfortunate comment.
Unfortunate
I
in
understand that's
hindsight,
what, how you regard it, Lord Lister, but I do want to press you a little. Do you think then that it wasn't necessarily made at the same time as the chickenpox parties?
I really am not sure. I cannot answer that question.
No. Well, even if it had been made sometime earlier, it had been known for many weeks by that stage, or it was known for many weeks before then, that COVID was a disease which would kill many of the people who caught it. So surely the Prime Minister wouldn't want to be telling the British public that it didn't pose a threat.
I come back to, if I may, in answer to your question, this is not that.
Has he just dropped everybody right in the shit?
That it had been a killer disease, but it had been a disease which had not transmitted itself to Europe. We had not reached us. And we were still living on the forlorn hope, as it turned out, that it wasn't going to come. That obviously was wrong.
There is a difference, but I mean, I don't think anyone injected themselves live on television with SARS, Lord Lister, nor would they have been well advised to do so.
I fully accept it's a comment that shouldn't have been made, but it was made at the heat of the moment.
Voluntarily injected with Ebola. What do you reckon? Do you reckon things like that go on?
Whenever
That's
he made
the
this
dodgy
comment,
gits here doing the
and
dodgy
obviously this is something we can ask him, but you've raised this.
Show 88.
So I'd like your own view about this. Do you think that Mr. Johnson did actually
nice, lovely,
think
beautiful
not
brown
only
women?
that
Beautiful.
the country was well equipped to deal with the disease and that there were systems and plans in place, but that actually even more fundamentally,
women,
it wasn't
ladies,
really a dangerous disease at all?
Cuddle.
I do underline the point I made earlier. I'm not sure of the timing of these things, but my memory is that at that stage, as the disease, the seriousness that it became apparent later on, we're right at the beginning of this. It hadn't really hit Europe. It was still very, very new.
Right. Let me move on with this and ask you some questions about another matter. and this relates to some of the early COBRA meetings that took place, in fact, in early March, and the question of whether the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, should or shouldn't have been invited to those meetings. We can start, in fact, on this page that we're looking at, which is convenient. If we could look at, that's it, paragraph 22, sub 2. You are recording here, and there's a list, is there not, of things that you know you did relating to COVID, which I imagine you took from an email review. You record here that on the 9th of March, the Mayor of London, that is Sadiq Khan, asked to attend, as we'll see, in fact, it was a particular COBRA meeting, and that you refused the request and suggested a meeting of mayors with Matt Hancock. I'd like to take you back in the chronology a little bit to explore what took place. And if we can start, please, by going to Sadiq Khan's witness statement, which is 221436, and page 16 of that statement. It'll come up on screen. We can see here that we'll remember that the date of your email, which you referred in your statement, was the 9th of March, so we've gone back a few days. And Mr. Khan says that he recalls that there was a COBRA meeting on the 2nd of March. He said it was about the 6th COBRA meeting, focusing on COVID-19. He hadn't been invited to attend any of the previous meetings. He asked his government relations team to contact number 10, requesting that he attend the 2nd of March meeting, given, as he said, that London was clearly one of the most at-risk places in the country due to its large number of airports and international travellers and high-density population. And if we very briefly just look at the paragraph above, we can see that on the same day he'd been told by Dr. Jenny Harris that 5 of the 35 confirmed cases in the UK, so 15% or thereabouts, were in fact from London. And just to follow from that, if we can go to a document, please, which relates to this exchange. It's 118937.
In the room. Hope you're all well. Much love to you all, wherever you are. Thanks for joining me.
Yes, thank you. So here we see,
cheers, bud.
We can look at the bottom half of the page first.
I got it, mate.
An email sent
there it is.
on the 28th of February, which was the end of the week before the 2nd of March, from Sadiq Khan's team to Claire Brunton, which is a name we'll see several times in these exchanges, at number 10. And we see that this person contacts Claire Brunton and relays a request from the Mayor's Chief of Staff for the Mayor to attend the COBRA meeting on Monday. That was the 2nd of March. And we see, given its large number of airports, hospitals, international visitors, London is, of course, potentially one of the most at-risk places. Just pausing there, that would seem to be quite a good reason for the Mayor of London to attend COBRA.
Perhaps because I've been so involved with London government, and because I've also been involved heavily with the other local authorities up and down the country. Always at the back of my mind was the accusation which would come at the Mayor that he was treating London differently to the rest of the country. And my view was then, it stayed all the way through the COVID crisis, that you had to treat all parts of the country equally and give them the same kind of access as London. And if you, for 1 minute, allowed London in without inviting the others, there would be nothing but difficulty and problems.
Well, we'll come to see that was why you stopped the Mayor attending a subsequent meeting. But one can see that that's a sensible, perhaps, starting point. But if one has a disease which is affecting London more immediately, or where the risk of the disease seems to be more focused or acute, really, is there some sort of prohibition on recognising the fact that the Mayor of London in that situation might be more deserving of a seat at COBRA than other regional mayors?
Yeah, but where do you draw the line on this? And also, I mean, as as you said earlier, it was it was a large number in proportionate terms, but it was still a relatively small number in London. The rest were outside London. Where do you draw the line on this? The mayor, the Prime Minister subsequently agreed to the mayor coming about, I don't know, a week later. I'm sorry, you will have.
We'll come to it.
But my point is, it was always about parity with the rest of the country and treating all parts of the country in the same way.
Well, we can take this more quickly now. I mean, to be fair, your name doesn't appear on these emails. Can you tell us at this distance whether you were involved on this date or not?
Which one?
We're looking at the emails from the 28th of February, Lord Lister. We'll come to see the ones which bear your name a week or so later. It may not matter much, but do you know whether you were involved on this occasion?
I probably was, but I can't confirm 100%.
But in any event, we see that what happened was that the message went back to say that the Mayor of London would not be invited to that Cobra meeting. Then we see, if we can go on to a different document, please, 214135. The same type of exchange on the 8th of March, so let's say a week or so later. If in fact we look at the email on the very bottom, again there's a member of the Mayor's team emailing Claire Brunton, following reports that Cobra will meet again tomorrow, re the coronavirus. The Mayor's view is that he should attend this meeting given the potential impact on London and Londoners. I know a request was declined for him to attend the previous meeting, that's the one we just looked at, but given the increased spread, we feel it's even more appropriate that he be there tomorrow. Can you let me know, please? And then if we go back to the page before,
he was being restricted from.
We see Claire Brunton, I think, contacting you, saying, I assume the answer is no again.
Was that a paranoia about creating social unrest about racial differences?
If we just leave it without it being enlarged, we can just read up, I think.
Or receiving of
in the middle of the page,
or
you saying, just underneath where it says on the 9th of March, you say no, but I do think there needs to be a meeting of mayors, perhaps with Matt Hancock. And then there's another email from Claire Brunton. These are all happening within a few minutes of each other, saying that the matter had been discussed at the 8:15 meeting, presumably without you, and that the general view from the room was that there is an argument for Sadiq Khan being at the meeting.
And they said they needed him there.
And in response, a few minutes later, you say you can't have him there without Street, that's the Mayor of West Midlands, Andy Burnham et al. Or is London more important than Manchester? So this is the view you've just expressed.
See, now they're obfuscating one city to another.
To that meeting.
See, that's dangerous. Now they're saying, oh, well, we didn't ask Sadiq because then we'd have to ask every other city mayor. That's no. Sadiq, mate, the meeting was at 8:15. Why weren't you there? Yeah, 8:15 that meeting was. Why weren't you there? No excuse about, oh, this, that and the other. Go and knock on the fucking door, you knobbit. You're the fucking Mayor of London.
But I did believe that to actually single out one authority over another would be a mistake.
Don't know. Who's this guy?
Just to complete the story, if we can go back to Sadiq Khan's witness.
He's working for one of them fucking side companies.
221436.
He's a Lord Lister. How dodgy gets,
we can see, if we go to
Thanks
page
for joining me. Hope you're enjoying
18,
yourselves.
please.
Have you got a cup of cha? Yeah.
We can see, and we don't need to zoom in, we can just look briefly. We see that he refers, having been not invited on the 9th of March to Cobra, on the 11th of March, he had a meeting with Chris Whitty,
anybody you could get hold of.
Then, if we look on paragraph 77,
what was
about halfway down, he says, we had a wide-ranging discussion, that's him and Chris Whitty, covering the way in which the situation was thought likely to develop, noting that the highest concentration of cases in the country was in London, which was not surprising given the density of its population and status as a major transport hub. So, in fact, Chris Whitty appears to be confirming
the obvious to each other, right?
that Sadiq Khan had earlier expressed. And then further down the page, we see that there was in fact, a COBRA meeting the next day on the 12th of March. Again, he asked to attend. Again, he was told he could not.
3 times.
Next page, please.
3 times.
It's
that
only
pissed me off.
the week after that,
I'd
on the
fucking
16th
turn up.
of March.
I'd turn up. Why didn't he turn up?
Sadiq Khan was invited to COBRA for the first time. That's paragraph 82. So, Lord Lesser, just finally on this, on reflection, in hindsight, given that sequence of events and the documents we've looked at, do you think perhaps you or the system ought to have been readier to make an exception to that rule?
The system.
Invite Sadiq Khan, as in fact, as we can see, he was on the 16th, a week or so earlier.
And yes, and I
Yes, a straight answer.
I should have authorised it earlier. But I was always concerned about this treating London differently from the rest of the country. And in fact, later on in COVID, that became much more.
Or the Asian community. Anybody ethnic.
Earlier, but that worry was always at the back of my mind.
Yeah. Right. Well, I want to take you forward then in time, please, and let's talk about the first lockdown. And if we can start, please, on page 11 of your.
You guys on page 11, statement paragraph 26. Thanks very much for joining me, everybody, on Dodgy Git. This is the Dodgy Git Show 88. Thank you very much. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. You can chat in the chat box. You can chat in the chat box of my live stream. You can put comments in the comment box underneath. We got on the 23rd of March 2020. Let's go.
Time until the vaccine was developed, and to underline the seriousness of the situation to the public. And I won't take you to it, but there's another paragraph of your statement where you state explicitly, perhaps it's implicit here, that you accepted and still accept that the first lockdown was justified at the time and in the circumstances that it was ordered.
I think what we believed at the beginning of March was that there was a plan that was there, that we could be used. There was the belief that herd immunity was the answer to the problem.
Oh yeah, did I tell you lot? I met Paul Weller in the shop. Yeah, he's getting some cigarettes and a lottery ticket in front of me. He's cool. He held the door and said sorry because he had to hold the door. It's alright, I sort of held the door for him and then we both went out. Cheers, mate. Yeah, Paul Weller in the shop, man. How cool is that?
Policy option that was open to the government, and that a lockdown was the only solution. But there were a lot of concerns about bringing the lockdown in. I mean, there was the worry about education, there was the worry about the economy. I mean, they were all there and they've all been spelt out. But it was felt that this was the only answer, and I go along with that. I think at that particular point in time, it was the right solution.
Thank you. And in fact, in the next paragraph of your witness statement, you give us a lengthy list, it goes on for several pages, of what you described as the key challenges the government faced at this time, by which I think you mean perhaps just before and then during the first lockdown. I wonder if I will pause at one or two of them, but if we just scroll through, we can see then what you regarded as being those key challenges: testing, social care. If we can go on to the next page, please.
What do you think about this
health legislation? The devolved administrations, I'll come back and ask you some further questions about that. You mentioned the issue of PPE. We can go to the next page, please. We can just cast our eyes down. There's a series of issues there. Next page, please.
Is he trying to find a bit? He was trying to make a point of that.
And the next page.
Yeah,
then you've mentioned the closure of educational establishments as being one
watch me other
matter of particular concern.
Yeah, low numbers on the videos. Watch the videos.
Was that
Thanks very much,
a factor which you regarded as being one which was considered as a reason not to lock down, or was it something that was a factor in terms of trying to unlock as quickly as possible?
It was more a question of trying to unlock as quickly as possible. I think I've said earlier in my statement that I believe that Once it became obvious, and I think it became obvious once we started to see what was happening in Italy, lockdown was an inevitable outcome. But it wasn't a pain-free option. We knew that once you moved into lockdown, there would be other people who wanted to access health for other reasons who would not be able to. We knew that there would be problems with education, that the economy, and I can go on with all those things. But that had to be balanced against the terrible prospect of deaths, which was just an unacceptable position, and there was really no choice at that time. But what I was trying to do is trying to say that it wasn't a pain-free decision. It was right that government should try and see what the consequences of what they were doing was going to be.
Yes, and we've looked through that range of issues which you describe as being in play at the time, and we can look to the bottom of this page. It includes, of course, a factor you've already raised, which is retail and business. Is it fair to assume then that this list, which at its outset you were clear was not, as it were, an exhaustive list, but that this list were the types of issues that you recall being raised with the Prime Minister or those around him during this period?
Yes, they were all things that were discussed because.
Back in the room, everybody. Right. Thanks very much for joining me. We're coming up to the 2-hour mark. They're starting to get into. They're starting to get away from the point that I first started watching the show. That's a live stream on YouTube. I'm borrowing live from the actual inquiry. So it's I started watching it with the other fella, and he looked like he was sweating a bit. But this guy's kind of casual, and he's a lot more calmly, logically progressive with his language, which I think would see him well. I think he knew what he was doing, and he's fine with the way he's answered what he's trying to answer. They will try and trip him up, but we see how it goes. We see how it goes. Well, you can see how it goes by tuning in there. You can go over there now, put Covid-19 inquiry in, and you get it there for yourself. Yeah. Yeah. I hope you liked. I hope you liked my content. I hope you liked the content within the content of what I'm talking about regarding government proactive, systematic improvements and changes. Yeah. It's only bred through the acknowledgement it requires doing. Yeah. It's a job that needs doing. It needs to happen. We've all had enough of the old ways. The old ways don't function anymore. We've lost the functionality within ourselves and the society in which we live. Yeah? People say it's chaos out there. There's people doing all sorts of crazy shit. They are doing crazy shit. People get... This is a point I'll make actually before I wrap up. People get carried away and obsessed. We're all very much obsessive compulsive beings. If you're not spending hundreds of pounds on one thing, you're spending hundreds of pounds on another. Yeah. So we'll do a show soon about addiction. Yeah. Yeah. It's quite a big subject. It'll probably be an hour's show of its own thing. You know. Yeah. Addiction. Yeah. Addiction to what? Yeah. Previous show, if you want to go back and look at that, I made that earlier today as I trip over my words and fail again. See, yeah, yeah. What was my point? Yeah. Go back, watch show 87. Yeah, we talk about tools. That's right. Yeah, tools. See, I got the old pooter back, the old steam engine back running. Yeah, it was It'd run out of electrons or something. Or I think a few electrons had fucking been out of the pub all night and fucking probably done something they fucking shouldn't have done. But the thing wasn't fucking doing what it's supposed to do on the fucking tin. Yeah. And it's a tool. Yeah, it's a tool to be able to convey to you what I'm thinking about and to create for you, yeah, the wonderful illusion that is the Dodgy Git Show. Yeah, yeah. And I do like enjoy producing this. Yeah, I do enjoy producing these shows and producing content for you guys out there in the big, wide, beautiful world in which we live. Yeah, where there is infinite amount of love. Yeah, and I got some love in here. Yeah, because I got love in here, I'm gonna give some to you. I'm gonna send some over to you. Yeah, there you go. You got some love in your heart now. Yeah, now you can go out. You can share that love with all the people you meet. Yeah, yeah. Don't forget, you write it. Yeah, you share that love around. Yeah, and don't forget to join me again next time by liking and subscribing. Press that bell, subscribe, and you get a notification. Don't forget to come and join me again next time. And don't forget to check out the videos and the shorts too. Yeah, get the numbers up on them videos, please, if you would. Yeah, but until next time, I'm Dodgy Git. This has been Dodgy Git Show 88 with two beautiful fat ladies. Yeah.